Good morning and good evening in Algeria. My name is Karina Black, and this is our first virtual engagement event. We are so fortunate to have Dr. Tarek Hadjoudj from Algeria with us today, and we are going to have a dialogue about what's happening in Algeria with the pandemic and with government, and sort of just having a dialogue about checking in with our important partner in Algeria that we've actually been partnering with for more than 10 years. So Tarek, thank you so much for being here. It was nice to see your family, and your sons are growing up like they're huge. I can't even believe it. And I've known them since they were babies, all of them. So it's great to see them. So Tarek, can you describe for us your work in Algeria? Well, you are a doctor and you also are a human rights activist. Give us a landscape of what you're doing currently and how COVID has affected your work and your country.
Yeah, thank you, Karina. Thank you, NNIC. Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Hadjoudj. I'm a medical doctor, but I am also an activist in what we call the civil society. I am president of an association. It's an Algerian association. In Algeria, we don't call the association NGO. We will talk about this context later. It's an ABCD association. Apparently is an association, but it's a non-formal network with 43 association working on civic engagement, especially given the Algerian youth, Algerian young people with opportunities to participate in programs, events, workshops, activities, to contribute to their growth as active citizens. Why we are targeting young people in Algeria? We're targeting young people because for the very simple reason that Algerian young under 30 years old represent almost 70% of the total population in Algeria, which is huge. This is why we targeted the youth. The second aspect of our work with the civil society is working on human rights, developing human rights, but with different approach. The classical approach or the regular or the classical approach working on human rights is generally advocacy. So we avoid advocacy we don't use advocacy to avoid government repression. We work on human rights across youth participation, debating topics like women's rights, children's rights, migrants' rights, even human trafficking is very important during all our activities. And in our situation also, youth participation is one of the key action to develop human rights.
So give us a little bit of a context for a geopolitical importance of Algeria to the United States. To where you are in Algiers, you're bordering the Mediterranean and you are looking towards Europe, but towards the south of Algeria, which, by the way, is the largest country in Africa. What does that situation look like in the south, where much of your work actually takes place?
Yeah, as a civil society, since 5 years old, we start working with migrants, and I'll give you an overview about the political and geographic and geopolitical context to understand why we start working with migrants. Algeria is the largest country in Africa. It's also the largest country in MENA region and the largest country in Mediterranean countries or Mediterranean basin. bordered by seven countries: Mali and Niger in the south, Morocco and Mauritania and Western Sahara in the west, Libya and Tunisia in the east. And another indicator, very important indicator, Algeria is close to Europe. Algerian coast is close to Europe, is 200 kilometers close to Europe, mainly Spain and Italy, which is very important indicator. And along much of the eastern and the southern part of its 7,000 kilometers land border, Algeria has to contend with greatly weakened states, Malian crisis, and Malian crisis, Nigeria also, Niger, in the north of Nigeria, the CVEs, the counter-violence extremism in Boko Haram, and in Niger, the civil war in Libya. This is the geopolitical context around Algeria. And this has made Algeria the first destination of migrants from almost 15 African countries, according to IOM, which is International Organization of Migrants, to join Europe at first, and also to stay and working in Algeria. According to IOM, which is UN agency, almost 100,000 of migrants are living in Algeria. And as civil society, we saw that it's a good opportunity for us to work with this environment. You know, developing topics like discrimination, HIV, sometimes LGBT. It's interesting to develop our youth when we work with this community of migrants. And this is the context and the migration context nowadays in Algeria. Mm-hmm. And about the COVID, also you asked me questions.
Yes.
Yeah, the COVID-19. Yeah, the COVID-19. You know, Algeria, like other countries through the world, has not escaped the COVID, this respiratory disease. Nowadays, the actual situation shows number of 48,800 positive cases and 1,446 deaths. Before the operation of COVID-19 in the country, Algeria was considered one of the African countries with the highest importation risk, because I think with South Africa and Egypt, because of the trading with China and the traveling and working with China and the links with China. But the starting point of the epidemic is reported on March 1st. It was 2 national citizens came from Europe, from France exactly, and the department of Blida start to be the epicenter of the epidemic. And now in all 48 cities, what we call wilaya, are affected with the varying numbers from 2 to 900 of positive cases. This is the situation in Algeria.
Do you think the Algerian government has handled the crisis in a way to avert a much larger crisis? And I'm speaking from the United States, where we don't necessarily feel that our government has done a great job in managing this crisis. How has that looked like in Algeria?
Yeah, there is another aspect. It's very important to know that these numbers about COVID-19 in Algeria, these numbers are to take with some care, since they don't reflect the reality of the situation. It's very important to know that due to the limited numbers of tests, and most of the positive cases are diagnosed according to radiology. This is what is increasing numbers. So it's very important to know that even the numbers couldn't reflect the reality of the situation. The government start restriction just after 3 weeks most of the activists in Algeria and even the institution consider it as a little bit late. They start the restrictions, stop the traveling between Europe, especially, and Algeria, France, and Italy and Spain. It was 3 weeks after the first case, and after that, when we got the epicenter in Blida, the government starts stopping everything, in terms of. Shortly just after the detection of the first case, the government were doing nothing, and all the population were they have to stop everything. They have to stop. The population start calling the government to stop, and now after 3 weeks, the cancellation of all travelers and isolation of the travelers, the restriction of all public gathering and school, and even the suspension of the suspensions of the prayer and the mosques, which is new. Suspension of all private and public businesses, except food and drugs. The government has started the measures now. 2 to 3 weeks ago, the government starts to ease the measures by allowing more businesses.
Yeah. So earlier in the year, Algeria was going through interesting transition from a previous government that had been there for a long time. But Algerians were quite unhappy and had huge protests all over Algeria. So that has stopped, obviously, because the protests were in Algiers, for example. There were millions of people that were gathering every Friday. Do you think the government has taken appropriate action to manage the protests and the crisis at the same time?
Yeah, what we say in Algeria, that the COVID-19 was a gift for the government. it was a big gift for the government, and the government is very happy because COVID-19 happened, because this is the context politics in Algeria. The Algerians start protesting since February 2019. At first, because to stop the candidacy of the President Bouteflika, but after that, the protesters start looking for more and more democracy. So since February 2019, every week, every Friday, we got the protest till the COVID-19. So the protesters called to stop the movement, what we called Hirak, until after the epidemic, until we find solution of epidemic, this global epidemic. The government, the problem is the government, as I told you, it's kind of a gift from, it's a gift because the government start or have new wave of repression. So we have 8 activists jailed and 2 journalists. The accusation is, in fact, unfortunately, is to harm the national territory. And now the government, not the issues, it's economic issues. This is now the challenge of the population and even the government. And the population were waiting for, most of the protesters, they are waiting to stop or ease the measures to restart the protest, and the government try to handle with economic solutions.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about Algeria, to provide a context, talk a little bit about Algeria's economy and its heavy reliance on natural gas and oil, and how is this going to play out in your mind, looking to the future in terms of the loss of revenue from oil and the lack of investment in infrastructure. What's going to happen in Algeria? What are your biggest fears?
Yeah, this is the situation now. The people are not scared of COVID-19 anymore. Even the government now, after 6 months, the economic impact is already here. All characteristic of economic shutdown were here before the COVID-19. Algeria depends on hydrocarbons exports to bring more than 95% of foreign currency, and also Algeria. Another crucial characteristic is that we have a lot of informality in our economic system. I mean, when you say a lot of informality, an informal economic system, a lot of after suspensions of the business activities because COVID, that create a vulnerabilities with people that really depends on day-to-day activities to survive. The combination of elements of all those elements specific to Algeria puts us right in the middle of the crisis, and the huge part of the iceberg, hidden part of the iceberg, is economic crisis. This is why now the government, the Algerian government speech is try to rebuild the confidence with the people on starting a debate how to reform the economics and how to reform even the other aspects. So the government calls to for debate to reform economics and even to reform the constitutions and to start a national discussion and debate. And this is what the government is doing now. And we are waiting. In the 1st November, we'll have referendum for the constitution.
Can you talk a little bit about the media? How do Algerians get the news? What is happening? Is media free in Algeria? Is it? I've heard some indicators that it's not the most free, but how do Algerians receive news, and what is happening especially in the online version of the media?
Yeah, as I said, the repression against the protest movement starts from the government, and 8 activists were arrested, and 2 journalists accused of harming the integrity of the national territory. Nowadays, the protests are just waiting to ease in the measures to restart. The media, what also another context is the government stopped the media who they do not have the authorization to work, especially web media. In Algeria, in the media law, there is no definition of the web media. It doesn't exist in the Algerian law of media. And a lot of the government two weeks ago tried to give the authorization for the media, even the TV's media, for example, in Algeria, they don't have the authorization. They are not, except the national and the public TVs, all the Algerian private, Algerian private channel are in fact correspondent for a foreign channel. So I mean, legally, it's not an Algerian company. Legally, this media, it's a foreign company and has an office here in Algeria. And this lack of the law of media, the government is still saying, okay, we are going to make a reform and proposing the new law about media, but unfortunately, on the other hand, he's still keeping the repression, and three of the most active media, web media, are stopped, and we can't get in from Algeria, for example. This is the situation with the media. One of the journalists, also 2 journalists, are in jail now and accused of harming the territorial integrity of the national territory. And there is a national and even international movement from international NGOs to help those journalists and to making them free.
I'm going to switch gears to talk a little bit about our partnership for the Algerian Youth Leadership Program, which we've had. We're going into our 12th year, or we are in our 12th year. Um, can you describe a little bit from your perspective what that has meant for you and your broader vision for Algeria? I think you are in contact with so many of our alumni from all throughout Algeria, and many of them are actually listening in today. So talk a little bit about, what were your expectations 12 years ago or 10 years ago, and has this borne fruit for you? Has this been a successful collaboration between the United States and Algeria? And if so, what has been the benefit for Algerian youth?
Yeah, and IYLP I think, is a life changing experience, even for me personally. I could talk about IYLP and NNIC for hours, Karina. 10 years of, 10 years of partnership, a lot of emotions, and a lot of work also. Uh, let's talk about. I have some numbers. You know that I have some numbers. The almost 250, almost 250 participants on IYLP from 2010 till 2019. Another thing, that is the only IYLP program is the only program who target the high school students. All the programs in Algeria, even the national one or international one, do not target the high school students. At first, we thought that we are afraid of the impact, but now that the oldest participants in IYLP now has 27 years old, which is young, very young. I have some numbers, like we have 12 IYLPs alumni working on UN agencies. We have more than 37 till 32 IYLP got a good scholarship in European universities and American universities, especially American University of Cairo and American University of Beirut. Some of the IYLP now working on the biggest international company. What else? The Association of Alumni in Algeria. Most of the founders of this association are IYLP. And also another aspect which is new 3 years ago, and you'll be surprised. We discovered that five IYLPs have their own business. I mean, they start entrepreneurship. And even I'm talking about 27 years old. You know that there is an English school in Biskra running by IYLP. There is English school in Wetsouf, and there is English school in Constantine. And it's not regular English school, in fact. It's like super educative center or something like that. It's more than English teaching, even civic engagement teaching, active citizen teaching, and other things. I think now we start to link the all IYLPs for new because we share the same values. This is what is good in IYLPs. As you know, a lot of projects in our network, we recommend IYLP than another person. Someone who participated between 40 years old to 50 years old in IYLP is automatically good in terms of active citizens. He's good in terms of values, in terms of discriminations or fighting discrimination and stereotype. He's good. So this is IYLP what represent in Algeria, and we are really looking to and we start doing it with sharing IYLP to giving another push to giving another opportunities for IYLPs and to also contribute in the change of Algeria.
Yeah, you're making me shiver. It sounds amazing what has been able to be done, and I think we were so lucky to get you as a partner in Algeria, because I don't think we could have reached so many people. I know whenever we do the panel interviews, your focus has always been to make sure we reach all the way to the south of Algeria, to all the wilayas that are not usually represented in benefiting from a lot of these programs. And Algeria is so diverse, and we were talking earlier how diversity has such a different meaning. I remember in the beginning when I used to ask Algerian youth about, what does diversity mean? They couldn't really grasp it. But you have a very unique cultural background with the Amazigh people, who are the original people in Algeria. Can you talk a little bit about what diversity means in your country, and how it's there's Black people, there's white people, there is cultural differences, but the term diversity just means such a different thing. So talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, thank you, Karina, because also there is specific things in IYLP according to other programs is a diversity, and most of the participants they came from disadvantaged area and from all Algeria. Yeah, diversity in Algeria. I'll be honest with you, as an Algerian, we discover the diversity as something good. It's like in our educational systems, we don't talk about diversity. The context of Algeria coming from the socialism and the communism, and like everyone is the same, and the religious context also. We have the same religion, everything is same. But when we start working on different cities, we discover the diversity. It's one of our key also, our key intervention for our network is working on diversity to build the capacity of youth. So transforming diversity as strengths and not as weaknesses. It's very important. In Algeria, we have diversity in terms of ethnical diversity, the colors of skins. When you see an Algerian, you can say he's Mediterranean, he's Arabic, he's Amazigh, he's African. It's diversity in language also. We have almost 10 languages, specific languages for Amazigh, and the Arabic language also, and the Amazigh language. Because we are close to, historically, to Europe, we speak French. Most of the Algerians speak French. And this diversity, unfortunately, the old system or the Algerian government do not work on the diversity. The speech of the leaders in Algeria is not is not too reasonable. To have one speech, we are one nation, one color, one religion, and this is our challenge now with our youth in the new constitution to put the diversity as one of the ways of Algeria and work on diversity in everything, and which is a new challenge for us, and it's also what we learn from international program as IYLP. Most or all the participants in IYLP, they learned about diversity and they practice the diversity in Algeria because IYLP.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to open it up for questions from the public. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I believe I'm going to get some prompts on questions. Okay, so here I have a question from the audience. do you think that the numbers don't reflect the reality because the media is controlled by the government? I'm going to assume that numbers of COVID cases don't necessarily reflect actuality because of the government control of the media. So that there's a potential that there's actually a lot more COVID cases than is currently being reported, because the number is quite low that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's in fact the numbers do not reflect the reality of COVID-19 in Algeria, because not just because the government is not letting for the media communicate the numbers, but because we have a problem of test. We don't test everyone, and we are using the radiology to increase the numbers. Politically, it's quite confusing. Politically, the Algerian government prefer increasing number to keep the protest, to keep the protesters stopping the protest. I don't see the interest or the benefits of the government to decreasing the numbers. Algerian government known he doesn't receive the aid from international agencies. It's like we call it in civil society as a macho system. They do not receive, and I think the Algerian government wants to the numbers, high numbers, to keep the protest, to stop the protest, and it's true that the numbers do not reflect. I mean, scientifically, the numbers not reflect because we are not testing, and our test is the numbers is increasing because the radiology. This is about the numbers of new cases.
So yeah, if anyone in the audience has questions for Tarek, please type them into the chat box. There was another question/comment from the audience about the lack of participation in terms of taxes, and that Algerians don't actually pay taxes to advocate or to broaden government service. What does that look like with taxes? Like how do Algeria? So if the government receives its funding for services mainly from the export of oil, gas, are there contributions from the government, from the people, to actually also pay taxes? So do you as an individual citizen pay taxes?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's very important to understand the economic system in Algeria. We still far from the capitalism. In Algeria, most of the revenue and defenses came from oil. Taxes brought just Algerian currency, and the government couldn't buy anything with Algerian currency. So it means Algerian economic system is rent is a rent system. As this is the problem. Even here in Algeria, we don't have the culture of taxes. Since the first cases of COVID-19, the government stopped all the taxes. I mean, for the businesses, and stopped all the taxes and give an allowance for workers, and almost 30,000 dinars, almost $300 by family. The Algerian economics it's economics based on just oil, and this is the problem is in the next year, or in few months after the COVID.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot, and if you had a magic wand and you could be the person that helps to resolve Algeria's problems in the future, and you had 3 key solutions, what would those solutions be in terms of changes that you would like to see in the Algerian government?
Good question. I think the one of the solution is restoring democracy, a real democracy, and political solution is restoring a democracy, a real democracy. The second one is the reform, economic reform, based on a new Algerian market and open on international market. It's very important for Algeria. We don't have tourism because our economy is closed. We don't have services. We don't have electronic payment because all our economics is closed. It's very important to open. Algeria has resources, has youth and natural resources, and Algeria very close to Europe, and also Algeria is the gate of Africa. It's a lot of resources. I think one of the priority and of the first priority is restoring a real democracy, which is a time for us as Tunisia. They do it in Tunisia as I consider it as the first country, democratic country. I mean, real democracy. I think it's a time also for Algeria to have to practice democracy.
So there's a question about the legitimacy of the Algerian government. What do you think young people can do? Should they collaborate and push government to make those changes, or should they continue the protests against the government because they feel like the legitimacy in collaborating with the government, it actually supports the legitimacy of the government?
I think there is a different way to help, even helping the government to restore the democracy. One of the weaknesses of the hierarchy of the movement and the protest is the protest, there is no leaders, and the hierarchy or the protest is not organized. I think now it's this 7 months, the government shows us good willing to change. The change, it's a long process. It's a long process. One of the action is very important to be organized. Sometimes to participate even the election. I think it's very important the participation is very important. Even we have a repression authorities, we keep the protest and also we participate. I'm one of the people who said, one of the activists who said, we keep the protest and we have to organize ourselves and participate. There is a lot of opinions. There is activists who said, no, we keep just the protest because when we start organizing ourselves, the government will control everything. And I'm with the concept of using all the tools and the measures to change, to looking for the change, for better change.
What about women in the whole protest movement and in women's rights in Algeria? What does that look like? Because I know, looking at the government structure in Algeria, I know that there were some women that have been elected to office, but I feel that women's representation in government is quite low.
Yeah, the women in the hierarchy, the women were one of the strength of the hierarchy. The women were there every Friday from the first hierarchy, from the first protest till the last protest before COVID cases. In fact, in the Algerian law, I mean, the new law of participation in elections, we have the quota system. I don't know if you call it quota system of women, which is very good, in fact, which is very good. The women, we still have a lot of work to empower women participation in Algeria. We have a lot of challenges. One of the challenges is culturally and socially challenges. It's very important. This is what we are doing in civil society in our network, for example, helping women or empower women or girls to participate. It's very important, and this is a challenge. I think it's more with the cultural and social context than with the government, because the law restored by the government on women participation, it's quite good, according to our region, or Africa is one of the, I think, one of the best law who encourage women to participate. But now the challenge is from the civil society to change some mentalities.
Yeah. Here's a good question from the audience. What news is arriving to Algeria about the current political situation in the United States and the potential threats to our democracy in here in the US? Do people in Algeria favor a particular president, Republican or Democrat? What are you hearing about our interesting situation?
Yeah, Algerian. I will give you two situations. Most of the Algerian, they do not like the Trump president. I think it's not. Yeah. But I had to talk with the Algerian businessman who really like the Trump decision in economics and everything. I was surprised. It was Algerian businessman. It's an Algerian association of Patrona working on as the leaders of company. But most of the Algerians, they have this. They consider the I think because the media, or they consider the Algerian, for example, the U.S. embassy in Algeria those 3 years focused all the programs on economics, on the media, on economics. Algerian, there is also an very important element is Palestine. Algerian is very close to the Palestinians and have a lot of opinions about conflict Israeli-Palestinian. And after the new decision of the U.S. government to, for example, the embassy of USA in Jerusalem, it's a lot of Algerians. They had opinions on that. I think one of the point is Palestinians as international affairs, about Algerians' opinions on U.S. and most of the Algerian prefer democratic. I saw a lot of sharing for Biden. Before Biden, I saw a lot of sharing in social media. I mean, Algerian social media of the Sanders and Biden, and I think most of the Algerian prefer democratic is the reality. Yeah.
Okay. One question we have, and I spoke earlier to your two sons, and they both told me they're not in school. So how has the pandemic affected education in Algeria? Is it on, like here in the United States, we're moving very much to virtual education, but I think that is probably quite challenging in various parts of Algeria. So how does education for young people look like now?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the schools are stopped after the first cases of COVID-19, all the schools and universities. At first, they tried to organize some virtual classes and virtual classes, but it doesn't work because we have a very bad internet in Algeria, by the way. And also, most of the civil society try to organize webinar or organize Zoom conferences, but everything is stopped, even school and universities. This is the situation in Algeria since since the 2nd of March.
Wow. Okay. And is there any discussion on your school?
Yeah,
in August. Is it going to be like that for the whole year?
Yeah. After easing the restrictions, they are talking about the baccalaureate, which is the exams, the last exams of high school to get in college. They are talking about September to start the exams, and the universities also start 15th of September. It's supposed that they will start. It's supposed to start in 23rd August, but after new peak of new cases, they delayed to 15 September.
Well, Tarek, I am so happy to have seen you and your family today, and to have this conversation with you. I hope we have many years of collaboration to go, and we can affect many youth in Algeria, and that we can get beyond this pandemic and meet in person again in 2021. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for listening in.
Thank you, Karina, for having us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.